Hey, I want to talk about tapping to center. I learned it a long time ago, and I have been trying to teach my students tapping to center, and they might be a little resistant to the idea that it seems too hard. But recently we had a party, and for the final party I had a contest with prizes, and lo and behold, more people tried it, and everybody that tried it got it, even just in the hour that we were doing it. So I know it can be done, and with that in mind, I'm just going to demonstrate on a few pieces. I'm going to start with some perfectly symmetrical things, objects, and progressively get a little harder. And then I'll try on an actual piece of greenware that needs to be trimmed. But for starters, I'm going to use cans because they got a nice bit of weight, and they're also easier to tell if they're perfectly symmetrical. So you practice with things that you're not going to destroy as a piece that you worked hard on. And also it's just a little easier to tell when they're symmetrical than a piece that might be a little idiosyncratic. So I'm going to start with a can, and I've got my wheel set up. I have to adjust, look at the wheel head. It's an interesting angle, but so I'm gonna set it off and start the wheel nice and slow. And I like to put my hand on top to give me a little confidence for the hit. And I feel like with the hit, you want to have your arm or your elbow sort of anchored so that you're getting a regular tap, 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 and as opposed to things where your hand is free to move and hug this piece. So let me demonstrate. So I'm going to set it off and put my hand on top, and I'm just going to start tapping. And I'm really staring right in this area, so that's where I get to know if it's on or off. So if you put it off, if you kind of look at the little viewfinder here, you get to see that that is way off. And then if you, just trying to make sure that I'm in camera. So then when you look through that viewfinder, it's no longer going, it settles down. So I'm well aware of the fact that if I was hitting a greenware piece with my fingernails, that would be making some dents. So that would be a little different. So I'm going to try doing it with the softer part of my hand. I notice when I do this, I put my hand at a little bit of an angle like that, and I'm not exactly sure why. I guess I can do it upright, but when I'm not thinking about it, I notice that I'm doing that a little bit. Maybe it's just a little more agile. You got to kind of stay nimble. Again, if you start sort of trying to hug the piece and follow it around, and you start going over to the other side and over here, it's really about lessening the sort of frequency of its wobble. So setting off again. Not to tap on the fingertips, because again, on a real piece that would make dents. All right, so I'm going to switch to a stewed tomatoes because it's a little taller, and when we're talking cylinders, and that is on, okay. A little faster. So again, I'm not sure if you can see this, but my elbow is actually anchored on the splash pan. Not my elbow, my forearm. Set it off again. It's kind of keeping it simple. Don't switch hands. Don't try to go I see people do this a lot, that kind of stuff, and sort of, So go nice and slow so it doesn't fly off if you hit it too hard. Keep your hand on here so you have some more confidence to give it a hard whack if you need to. It's almost like I'm just bending at the wrist. It's not like if your whole arm is doing that. It's interesting, I tried one time to turn the wheel the opposite direction and do it with the hand that I wasn't used to, and suddenly I was doing all the things that I saw people doing when they're trying to learn it, which is hugging it and switching hands and trying all these different things. So just stay simple. And again, this is where you're looking. Usually I'm trimming, so if this is a piece that's upside down, this is where I'm trimming, so this is what I care if it's centered. If this is on a totally different center, because the piece is not symmetrical, then this is not going to give you the information you want. You want to look right where you're going to be trimming. Okay, so I'm going to try another piece that at the party, people got this, so just so you know. So I'm looking at this. That's what I'm trying to center. Don't care what's happening here. Well, I care, but... So when I go to tap it, I'm gonna put my fingers there, stare at the lid, and it's centered. So it's not about, I think people also try to think, well, I'm gonna hit it now, nope, now. And if you're, I don't think you can react that quickly to know why it's off. So I like to think of these as sort of nonsense tappings, and you just watch and you see, as you see, it's not moving around as much, and you kind of just know that you wouldn't be hitting it as hard. So your first hits are usually harder, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller as the frequency of the part that's off gets smaller. All right, so now I'm going to try it with a real piece. So this is a greenware piece. And you can see it's kind of got a weird flat edge, but I'm going to stare at that and put my hand on top. And I can tell that parts of it are off, but let's see. So if it's off, it's like you kind of ignore that weird spot. I guess you could, no, I would just like, you kind of get an average of that it's not, that thing isn't moving. That doesn't really make sense, but you're gonna have to deal with pieces like this, and practicing with pieces like this are gonna help you sort of calm down what you're looking at and realize, oh, okay, that's as centered as it's gonna get. Or I could even stare right down here because it doesn't have that little bit. But I feel like I need a point of reference to tell me when to stop hitting. Okay, let's try another one. So this one I think has a little wobble that way. But again, it's just, you know, I can try putting my finger there and seeing how much it moves. And I think just practice is going to be pretty crucial in being able to discern that a piece is centered even though there's kind of a funky edge. So nice to practice on things like these that are not that are perfectly symmetrical and not such a big loss if they go flying. Okay, another one. If something was a lot less symmetrical than these pieces, to me that's a good reason to trim them off the wheel. Just freewheel it, you know, just go off-road and sculpt them by hand. So I'm kind of staring down here because this is a bit wobbly and I can see a difference, and this is just a little more stable. But I'm not looking down at the very bottom. Okay, that's all I got. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.